Good morning. It is 9:32, and this is June 6th, 2023, Council Subcommittee on Water Issues. I'm calling this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Member Montoya?
Here.
Member Sischka?
Here.
Let the record reflect that Chairperson Roosing is excused from this meeting.
Okay, brief little bit of information about public comment. Public comment will be accepted following each agenda item and are limited to 3 minutes. Please complete a comment card and return it to the city clerk. Speakers will be called in the order received. Item 4, discussion and action items. Item A, approval of May 2nd, 2023 meeting minutes.
I move approval.
Second. Jennifer, are we just doing voice vote on this today?
No, we will do the...
All right.
Passes 2-0.
Okay, moving right along. We've got item 4B, monthly PFAS update.
Good morning. Steve Olfers, Utility Manager for City of Prescott. It's really weird having the echo. I can hear myself. It's weird. I just wanted to do a quick summary of where we are on our PFAS process. Of course, we're still in the process of waiting for the final rule comment that comes out of EPA. The comment period just closed at the end of last month. There's a lot of comments coming in saying there's too many restrictions financially and physically, even for the larger systems. So that's very nice to have as a protective measure for us medium and small systems. So really there's just, other than that, they're gathering comments. Supposedly we'll be hearing some more information sometime late in the summer as they put those comments together. As of right now, our process, our samples were collected on April 11th. That would be our second quarter samples under the new rule. That information is not on the screen, but is on your memo for all the different wells. The most important thing to realize is that our blending process is still producing non-detect levels at the Chino well sites, or at least at the Chino EPDS, the entry point to the distribution system. And airport well number 5 is also still out of service because it's not in compliance with the proposed rules.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
My question to you is, from your perspective as the utility manager, do we have any concerns as we enter into the summer months where we're going to have a higher level of usage of the water in our area that we can meet that demand?
No, I don't have any concerns at all. Right now, our demands are right about 8 million gallons a day. We'll peak out in the near 10s. We still have plenty of capacity to meet any of the challenges that we have, assuming that some of the infrastructure stays together. We're having a couple challenges with that, but the wells are nice and healthy and working, and it's just a matter of being able to get the water into the city of Prescott. Let's see.
Are we still looking at potential mitigation options for
Yes.
airport well 5?
Yes, sir. The
Well 5?
Waterworks engineers has been brought on to give us some options, both looking at it, what would make most financial sense to us as well as production sense. So we're still waiting for that report to come in. I'm not quite sure where the process is, what we expect or when we expect more information, but of course we'll share that with you as soon as we get it in. Let's see. That's really all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Steve, you got questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Excuse me, Steve.
Of course.
When number 5 went down, it went down mostly because of the firefighting foam, I'm assuming, at the airport that probably ended up in that area. Have they revisited reconstituting that firefighting foam to something which is not going to produce those results?
Well, I know that the military is working on some other different type of combination, but at this point, the federal rules, and I'm just speaking from what I remember from Chief Duro talking about, is that the federal rules still require the AFFF to be used in those situations. So the regulations haven't caught up with what we're seeing in the field.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it?
I don't have anything else for you.
Okay. We'll move on to
Thank you.
item 4C, current residential and non-residential water budget overview for January 1, 2023 through May 15, 2023.
Good morning. Yeah, this is a little weird. Good morning, Brian Reese with Water Resources Environmental Services Manager for City of Prescott. And we're going to go over with you today the water budget set for January 1st through June 30th, 2023. So water policies 11 through 13 require setting a budget for residential and non-residential water usage for the 6 months period or biannually. Table that we have up on the monitor right now shows the residential projects that were approved through May 15th of 2023. Excuse me, let me get this set up a little bit. Okay, so there were 8 projects approved in that period, and a total of 3 projects. Excuse me. Let me see here. Yeah, a total of 3 projects were approved through the subcommittee, the water subcommittee, and 5 projects administratively. Total water for the period is 13.18 acre feet, with a total remaining 11.82 acre feet in the budget. Okay, and non-residential projects, a total of 12 projects were approved for the period. 11 were administratively approved, and 1 was approved through the water subcommittee, giving a total of 13.25 acre feet of water and a total remaining of 11.75 for this budget period. Yes.
Brian, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What happens if one of these approvals that have come through either on the non-residential or residential side, what happens if it doesn't proceed? Does it go back into the budget, or does it just,
Yes.
is it locked in there forever? Or, I mean, I guess this goes to the idea that you and Gwen and I had a conversation about a little while ago, that this budget isn't necessarily, we haven't determined if it's going to roll forward or not, things like
Right.
that.
Yeah, so at this point, the water service application is tied to the permit, and water service application for a administratively approved, through the administratively approved process, has a 1 year time period. If nothing has, or if it hasn't moved sufficiently through the permitting at that point, then it would be reallocated back into and removed from the budget. For water subcommittee approvals, it's actually 6 months And I don't know if Tammy is here, but I want to say that it was, if they haven't sufficiently gone through their, was it the site plan permitting process, or what they needed for that permitting through the site plan, and that set that 6-month time period, then it would be removed. And
So 6 months from a approval that we do here, if they don't have a site plan, then that water allocation goes away.
yeah, I'm not sure if they don't have a site plan, but I think they have to, or if they have to have an approved site plan, get through that process.
So if they haven't sufficiently moved the ball forward, then
Yes.
within 6 months, then it goes.
Yeah, so you got that 6-month period. Yep. Okay, and up here, this table shows the tracked water services through the existing contracts. Through this period, there were, let me get through here, 24 projects approved. Most of them were single-family groundwater subdivision. There was the multifamily in there that accounts for the 458 units in its own right. Total of 482 units. Totaling 68.22 acre feet through the period. Oh, okay. And I think that's basic information we have for this period. If you have any questions at this point.
Steve, you got any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, I guess we'll move into item 4D then, presentation and discussion. Wait, actually, is that, all right? We're 4D is basically the approval of the new budget, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. 4D, presentation and discussion regarding the July to December 2023 residential and non-residential water budgets in accordance with the 2022 Water Management Policy, Policy number 11.
Yes, so it's per water policy on the June and the December water issue subcommittee meeting. The biannual budget needs to be reset. So today we'll just go over the numbers that we have and provide so you can make the proper recommendation for resetting the water budget for the next cycle. So for the residential water budget was set at 25 acre feet for January through June of 2023. A total of 14.84 acre feet was used between January and June through May 15th in order to get ready for this meeting, with 10.16 acre feet remaining. That represents 59% of the water budget for that time period. So that's what's shown up at the top of the first table. And then for non-residential, the January through June 2023 cycle set of water budget for 25 acre feet. And administratively approved 2.31 acre feet. Council approved 10.94 for a total of 13.25, and remaining 11.75 acre feet. This represents approximately 53% of the budget. So this table is a projection table for July to December of 2023, getting with the Community Development Department and their PAC applications that have come in over the last few months. We've put this together to try to project what may be coming in that next period. This is it's a best guess at what may be coming in. Obviously, we don't know any new projects that might be coming in. Some of these projects, you can see by the PAC numbers, were submitted a while back. They're just still on the table. Some of them have some challenges that may make them it may make it hard for them to move forward. Other ones, not so much. But with this projection and these projects, if they all came through, we'd be right about 25, maybe a little higher, 26. Accounting for administrative approval for residential. If you take out the kind of the outlier, that apartment complex, we're averaging about 2 acres, maybe 2.5 acre feet per year through administrative. Our best projections is not all of the projects are going to come through in the next 6 months that are shown on here. There might be some more that do come through. But in general, the 25 number that was set seems to be adequate for that projection. Moving over to the potential non-residential, same situation. We've gathered through the PAC applications, and community development lets us know if they've had any other conversations that may be projecting, but we didn't really see that in this time period. So looking at those projects, 25 acre foot budget is probably appropriate. So at this point, that's kind of the best information we can give you about what we project moving forward, and like to just let you go ahead and make your recommendations for the next budget cycle.
Steve, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
I have a couple of questions, Brian. My first question is, and this may be more for Leslie, because she's worked with the mayor's ad hoc committee, but is there any suggestion? I know we had a study session where they kind of kicked around maybe changing the idea of how the budget is going to be managed going forward. Do we have any more clarity around that? And if not, that's fine too. I'm just curious.
Good morning, subcommittee. I'll be working on my one-word answers a lot. No, just kidding. The timetable that we were shown with moving policy changes from the commission up to the council is not going to allow for their recommendations to land for this upcoming cycle. So they worked on in April their policy numbers 1 through 22. They moved 8 of them forward, and the 8 they didn't move forward included the budget pieces, because those have been challenging.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that information.
And on water resources staff management, we've talked about this a little bit in the past.
Yeah, that was the second part of my question is kind of where's staff at with this?
Yeah,
where the policy sits.
Yeah, definitely. So in follow-up with other conversations we had about trying to relate the budget better with our allotment for our DNO and everything else, kind of moving forward on 3 fronts. We have staff that is actually accumulating and documenting all of our existing contracts, so we can get a better foothold of where we stand with those. The worm, Leslie had a presentation last meeting where we disclosed there's a few disconnects between the worm and where we're at in our DNO and in our contracts at this point. So we're moving forward on the front of trying to solidify those 2 things, make sure they're consistent with each other. And then the third is working with our worm consultant once we get those things tied in and using the worm as effectively as possible to its full extent in order to understand where we're at in terms of allocations and have the ability to present those items in this meeting at appropriate times to give the information needed for setting the budgets, looking at them, and projections. So we're working on those things, and we're hoping, in the next few meetings, maybe we'll be able to have some details on where we're headed and how that's going.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Anything more?
That's all I have for you.
All right. I think this item calls for a motion.
I move we approve the residential and non-residential water budgets for the upcoming 6 months.
Second.
The item actually passed 2-0.
Got to remember to hit the button, right? Okay, we'll move on to item 4E, update on the city's... Oh, do we have a comment?
May I make a comment?
You need to fill out a speaking card, sir.
I'll do one at the end. Dr. Peter Krupnik.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Comments are, we're building a new storage tank on Highway 69.
Peter, is this on the comment on the
actually-
on the previous agenda item or the
It applies
upcoming
to both B and C.
P?
And my question is with respect to the storage tank we're building up there, the water that's going to get pumped up there, as we saw on the chart, a lot of the development is along 69. So we're going to need, I presume, that water for service. With well 5, I mean, what's the plumbing? Where is the water for this tank? Is it going to come from well 5, which is offline because of PFAS, to come back to that agenda item? And linking it to the budget, because it looked like from the water we're allocating, most of that is along the 69 corridor, where we're going to need the storage capability.
Sure. I'll let Stephen answer that, and then I apologize. I probably should have been checking for public comment after every item. So, anyways, Steve, you want to handle that?
Yeah, Steve Wolfers, Utilities Manager. The water tank that's being built above the dealerships is a replacement. We have a number of smaller tanks throughout that region that are aging out and are just not able to hold the capacity. So what we're doing is we're combining all of those tanks into one large tank. It's not additional by any means. It's still part of the process that we have. It's a 1.5 million gallon tank. We're not going to have to use AP5 in any measure for that. It's just going to be part of the general system.
Okay. Seems like a sufficient answer there. We'll move on to item 4E, discussion and update regarding the city's participation in comprehensive agreement number 1.
Good morning again, Subcommittee. Leslie Grazer, Public Works Water Resource Project Manager. And we're
It's
done.
quite a mouthful.
And we're done. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Can we get your
I'm not
titles
sure.
shortened and simplified there?
No, you can't.
You said that all in one breath.
That's right. Okay, I'm going to keep playing with this until, oh, good. It's moving. All right. So your memo actually has the most information in it, and I'll just touch on some highlights. Please recall that the comprehensive agreement number 1 somewhat stems from the city's 2009 decision and order, and that's where the city first put Big Chino Water Ranch into that document. Recall, if you were here at the time, living in this area, it did involve litigation. The courts did rule in favor of the city, and all subsequent appeals were dismissed. Downstream water right holders continued to have concerns, and this led to what was called agreement in principle, And that was to set forth principles guiding the parties, Prescott Valley, SRP, and forming the basis for more detailed future agreements addressing specific terms, including groundwater modeling, groundwater and surface water monitoring, and mitigation, if needed, due to the city's pumping. So that's comprehensive agreement number one. It rolled from being Big Chino supplies being put into the decision order, standard kind of practice, it being contested and going through litigation. Litigation ceased, and then there was still concerns. So the city worked with the downstream water right holder and the neighbor who also is identified for supplies, Prescott Valley. And first, there had to be an agreement of what was going to happen, and then there would be comprehensive agreement number one, which launched us into monitoring and modeling. So then there's the structure. So this, I think, is important. The chart that you see, if I can use the pointer correctly, all these little doodads. Oh, yeah, the pointer doesn't work on the screen.
I don't think there's any pointer.
That's such a tease to be like, here's your pointer, but you can't use it. Okay, just looking at the top of this diagram, I think the key pieces is there are principles related. So the city manager, the town manager, and SRP's general manager. From there, the people with the shovels have been, the steering committee. That includes myself, Neil Wadsworth, as well as Adam Smith. So Prescott Valley is Neil Wadsworth, SRP is Adam Smith. And then both parties wanted to ensure that there was it was unbiased, the work. So the city and the town sought support from Matrix New World, which was also known as Southwest Groundwater, and then SRP used their technical arm outside of their agency, known as LRE Water. There was also the next party that came in was the actual group that was going to be doing the groundwater modeling. And so because I can't point at this, there are a lot of activity going around on this diagram, and that's why I built it long ago, so that when somebody said, what is this, how does this work? I can say, well, here's the picture and let's walk through it. But we'll continue on today because I think you have the highlights. Now on the city's website, I've maintained the exact wording that has been used related to agreement in principle and the date, the city's resolution related to it, as well as the contract, and then comprehensive agreement number one as well. That's been occupying, taking up space on the city's website to explain what that is, the council resolution that approved it, the memo which has the details, and the contract itself. At the very bottom of the slide, you'll see there's the web pathway. So if you have a copy of this, you'll be able to just link yourself right to the correct spot on the city's website. So why is this important? This project has had annual reports, and there's an example of what you'll find online. It's had quite a few monitoring contracts, so this is just one of many. So as I stated at the very beginning, we had to do a lot of data, assimilation, trying to get that pulled together, as well as new data to make this worthwhile. And so we were running at breakneck speed while trying to stay ahead of a modeling team that was going to be active fairly soon. And then last is this, the modeling contract. So this has been going through quite a few amendments over time, but back in your memo again, the model build began in roughly September 2019, where the firm now known as WSP, formerly Golder, groundwater modeling team was outlining the components of the development process, which includes general setting, climate, stream flow, spring flow, geology, aquifer properties, water chemistry, groundwater elevations, groundwater budget, water quality, constraints and gaps, uncertainties, things that have to be taken care of. So I think sometimes there's a little bit of confusion where people are like, well, you've been working on this since 2012, but really the modeling didn't kick in until 2019. So the update. As you recall, we were in a little bit of a standstill related to this contract. So it was fully executed, the amendment. So it's a contract allowance authorization number 4, May 4th of 2023. and the intention is to have it done by July 18th, 2024. As of 2 weeks ago, we were still in email communications. Due to the delay in signing this, we're worried that it might affect the schedule. So once we know more, we'll, of course, bring that to you. And then the remaining contract allowance, if needed, is the $17,880. We do believe it will be needed. And let me back up there for a second, because we didn't really talk budget. Everything's already in the bank. So it's not like we're seeking council approvals for more monies at this point. The $5.6 million, which was divided roughly 3 ways, has been in the bank for at least almost 4 years now, I believe. So we're just using what's in the account. We had a kickoff meeting on May 17th, 2023. We learned that our project management has shifted with WSP to Adam Finch. And the project start date has moved to May 16th. Final report, an outline. We wanted that annotated, just like 3 sentences per each topic in that report to make sure that we are on the same page. The other, illustrative terms I've used is we're really in a relay now. And so, WSP has to relay this information to us fairly quickly. We need to get it to our specialized technical consultants that I showed you as LRE and Matrix New World. They've got to turn that around fairly quickly and get it back in the hands of WSP. And we have to do that about 3 times, with the 4th being the final report. So we have quite a bit of work ahead. The picture on screen is the one I've typically used, I think, since day one. To understand groundwater flow models, they're 3-dimensionals. You hear we have a model for this and a model for that, and we're modeling this, and we have a water resource management model. But this is what you need to have in your mind, and that's why we provide this picture. They're working on predominantly the subsurface in a groundwater flow model, but of course there's inputs related to what's happening on the surface as well. So next steps, just when you think you're done, models have scenarios run on them to see how they perform and to help you judge the future. So after model completion, the parties will be working with the specialized technical consultants. I'm sorry I didn't put the full word in there. That was part of the diagram at the very beginning. So specialized technical consultants will commence scenario work. And so what does that mean? Here you see another picture that shows you all the different inputs you could potentially vary in a groundwater flow model. We're going to be focusing predominantly on pumping and where that pumping is within the basin for our first scenario look at this model and what it can tell us. And then I guess I'll just leave that as questions. These are actual pictures from the project, different equipment, different things we've seen along the way. Actually, that's not entirely true. We did not see a snake, but we know they're out there, and it is snake season, so everybody needs to be aware of that as we take people out, or we have folks working out on the property. Safety is always, of course, number one. And I think the ending part of the little quote at the bottom by Henry Ford, I think we've tried to maintain that from day one, is that, first we had to come together and we had to keep together through this, even through tough times where we had 3 different folks representing entities with shovels in hand to get through things, and then working together is success. And so we're still working towards that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Leslie, I have a question. It looks like, according to one of your slides here, it says final report outline annotated May 29th, 2023. And then it sounds like we'll have modeling scenarios. You have a rough idea of when the modeling scenario component will be completed, where we'll actually have that information to move forward with?
I'm going to have to talk with our partners. We had contracts prepared to start executing that work probably 6 months ago, but with the delay with WSP, formerly Golder, it wasn't time to kick that off. So unfortunately, I don't have a specific date. We're going to be reloading that, but I'll need to talk to the other partners.
Even a rough idea of how long inputting the model?
Scenarios, I would say 6 months to 9 months.
Okay. Steve, you got a question?
If all goes well, is this real wood? Okay.
That's what Tim says. So
Okay, we trust him.
So Leslie, in a perfect world, and I know that doesn't exist, but in a perfect world, what would be the ideal outcome for the city of Prescott of this process?
Can I do a plural on that one? Like 3 successful outcomes? I think it's really important that we have clear and strong communications with downstream partners on this. So I think that's one of our top outcomes. The other one would be that we have a strong model that we all feel we can rally around and use for future planning. And then the last one would be that we have that strength happening in those first 2, that if pumping or when pumping starts in the Big Chino area, we're able to track if there is any mitigation that needs to be done. So that's really what this focuses on. And as I said, I know it gets confusing because we say model in so many of your meetings in different ways, referring to different things. But this model was intended to see if there would be any impacts to the upper Verde related to pumping in the Big Chino. So not necessarily like you've heard with a decision and order. You know, the decision order right now, we're looking at the pumping in the active management area, which is neighboring to. And then Big Chino, we have the potential to be looking at that again. But this project is solely looking at, do we see any impacts to the Verde and that's the scenario part, when you pump, or something else significantly changes in that sub-basin.
So the ideal outcome would be that there would be no impact to the Verde River?
No to very limited. I think we have to be realistic here. Anytime you have a population that doesn't migrate anymore and relax resources, and you pump in one location, you can have impacts, and it's a matter of timing and magnitude where those impacts will be. If you're way up a basin from the Verde itself, you're going to have different impacts potentially than if you were pumping right here next to it. Or this Verde could be influenced by the limestones up to the north and contributions there. So I don't mean to dance all over this, but we have to be very careful because I don't even know at this point. We're going to wait for this modeling to come out, see if we can all agree to what we're seeing or not, which is okay too. That's part of science.
Thank you.
You bet.
Do we have any public comment? Peter is holding his hand up. Peter, you want to hand her your comment card?
These things take practice.
We'll give you some grace on this, Peter.
Just a couple of comments. That schedule, Leslie, as shown, does not include public comment period anywhere. That's not a surprise because it was never there, but with the revisions, I would certainly think it would be appropriate. The second part of that is as we go to scenario development, it really would be nice to allow some public comment in building the scenarios.
Duly
Leslie, do you want
noted.
to speak to that at all?
Duly noted, and this is a 3-party agreement, so it's not just the city's decision on how the public interfaces, but I think we all fully agree that there needs to be public outreach as things get closer so that you can see the progression and those that are interested can, provide input as to what they're seeing, thinking, or concerned about. Thank you.
For those who don't know, I am a professional hydrologist specializing in groundwater modeling, which is why my concerns are here. Leslie knows fully well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I think that takes us to item 4F, discussion regarding proposed water legislation impacting the city of Prescott and surrounding areas. Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian Reese, Water Resources Environmental Service Manager for the City of Prescott. So back on March 7th, 2023, I gave an update on some of the water legislation that was making its way through the state. At Northern Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, which the city is a member of, has been tracking the water resolution, water legislation, excuse me. At this point, they've looked at just about 80 bills. They made 18 recommendations of support and 4 opposed on those bills. So here I would like to just kind of go over a few of the bills that we tracked that first time around in March and just kind of let you know what's been going on since then. I'd say probably in general, there was some fairly exciting legislation that was proposed for this session. A lot of that excitement's probably kind of fizzled out at this point. There really hasn't been too much movement on any bills that may provide significant help towards some of the water issues we have. And I think we know there's a lot of challenges with that, and it's probably the reason why. But to start out with, House Bill 2765 was proposed to appropriate $5 million to the general fund in order to help investigate and mitigate PFOS and PFOS contaminants. So basically, to this point, the bill hasn't really made it its way out of its committees. So there's no reason to expect this bill will do anything in this point. It's basically dead. Senate Bill 1432, small residential developments. So bill was identical to House Bill 2048. This bill was required that anybody seeking to subdivide 6 more residents within an AMA would have to obtain a certificate of assured water supply from ADWA unless they could show that they had a water commitment from an assured water supplier, help keep consistency balance within AMAs and for tracking purposes. The vote went to the second committee of the whole and is currently on retainer on the calendar. So I was told that this probably could indicate that maybe internally within the legislature, they may be working out and sorting out some details to allow the bill to move forward. So we'll see where that goes.
Brian,
Yeah.
so I would assume this would have an impact on development in Yampai County outside of unincorporated areas?
Yes, as far as I can see what I read.
Interesting.
House Bill 2793, water efficient plumbing fixtures. This bill was generated to try to create some consistency with all future plumbing fixtures meeting the WaterSense labeling standards. And this bill also could not make its way out of the committee. There's no reason to believe it's going to move forward at all during this legislative session. Senate Bill 1660, water effluent credits. So this bill was basically for large water users. My understanding is bottle watering and other juice and watering water companies requiring or allowing them to go ahead and basically treat and store water use, and then allowing them to use that in terms of a long-term storage credit, stemming from the want to keep the industry coming in, potential projects coming that have a lot of water usage, and potential problems with some of the water treatment facilities not having the capacity to keep up with that industry in certain locations. This bill was amended several times in order to try to, I guess, get it more balanced and ability to get passed. The last I saw it was amended to require 75% to be able to be attained in the long-term storage credits, and 25% being utilized to replenish the aquifer. It made its way through the House, but it's been sitting in the Senate for a while now, since March, with no movement whatsoever. So might be a bad sign for this bill. We'll see what it goes. House Bill 2731, local groundwater stewardship areas. And this bill was proposed to try to help all these areas outside of AMAs. There's a lot of areas in Arizona struggling with their water situation, and there's been a lot of work and effort over at least the last 5 years, maybe longer, to try to get some system in place to help these areas out with their water concerns. This particular one would have created these was local groundwater stewardship areas, which would create a council of local members, and would provide funds through the general fund, $50 million, allowing ADWR to help these councils be formed and create the systems they needed for their water needs. But this bill did not make it out of committee. Very controversial in terms of it's such a delicate situation. If you go wrong, it could spiral out of control. And yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be moved on in this legislative period. House Bill 2561, city water provider service needs. So this bill was this is a bill that was basically requires that a municipality provide a standpipe if certain requirements were met. They had been providing water to an outside area for a certain amount of time. Bill is stemmed from Scottsdale and was it Rio Verde, I think, subcommunity or community, and the issues that came about once the city of Scottsdale stopped supplying them water. It passed through the transmitted to the Senate, but has been sitting there since May. Not sure what's going on with it behind closed doors, but probably not a great sign for the bill that there hasn't been many movement at this point in time. Lastly, we have Senate Bill 1392, Arizona State Parks Board, looking at getting a state park for the area around the headwaters of the Verde River. So this bill was requested through our partners in Chino Valley to be supported through NAMWA, which they did, and the original bill requested $10 million in funding for completion of a state park facility up in that area. Through the course of its process through the Senate and the House, that funding was reduced to $7 million. My understanding is that $7 million was included in the $18 billion state budget that was passed recently. So that's probably a good sign for the bill. Also, our partners over at Chino Valley have said that Senator Sinema is pursuing through congressional direct funding mechanisms available to her for an additional $2 million. So at this point, it's been through the second reading of the House. It has been sitting there for quite a while without any further action. So we'll see where it goes. And I think that's all I have for you. If you had any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Steve, any questions?
No.
Any public comment? Peter? All right. I think we're good. I think that is the last item, unless I'm mistaken.
We have general announcements.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Item 5, general announcements from staff.
Okay, so what we have for you here, this is a diagram that Leslie has put together. It's actually pretty, informational, and I think is a very nice table. So we're thinking bringing this back up. I think you've seen it before in the past, and maybe just giving either bi-monthly or quarterly updates so we can kind of track and see how things are going in terms of the pumping and the recharge facilities. So apologize, it's a little bit small to read the numbers and everything. We'll work on this graph a little bit, make it a little bit better for presentations in the future. So one of the things I wanted to state right now is all the volumes shown are provisional at this point in time. During the required annual reporting periods, water resource staff goes through all of the numbers and all of the spreadsheets, equations, and everything with a fine-tooth comb. But we haven't gotten to that point at this point. So, but we do feel it's a good representation of where the volumes are at this point. So in the color graphs, you can see the current information that we have for 2023. So the blue line represents our pumping, and you can see that it's moving up as we get into the hotter months, as would be expected. The gray line above it shows the 2023 line for comparison purposes. So our pumping is slightly lower right now than it was in 2022. Probably for just about everything for the trends contributed to this. We can account mostly for the very, very wet winter that we had. Outdoor irrigation is a big part of our pumping requirements, and at this point, as wet as everything has been up to this point, we're probably using less water on that front. The purple line shows the effluent deliveries to our recharge facilities. So we utilize effluent in a couple different ways. We have direct use to customers, and we have effluent recharge component. So this bar graph in purple represents strictly the recharge component of that. And as you can see, it's well above the its 2022 counterpart for the first 4 months of the year. Once again, the wastewater treatment facility was working at 10 million gallons per day up in that late February, March area timeframe. So had a lot of water going through that treatment plant and had moving on through into the recharge areas. So we're well above on that trend for the year before. And then the green bars represent the surface water delivery to the recharge area. And as you can see, we've moved forward and are above the counterpart from 2022. The lakes are still relatively full at this point, and recharging is still strong as we go through. I'm sure those water surface deliveries are going to start to balance out over the next few months, but puts us on a good trajectory for our recharging and the volumes that we target for every year at this point. So Anyway, just wanted to share this graph with you, and we'll bring it up, like I said, when we have it updated periodically, so you can kind of see where things are going for the year.
Questions, Steve?
No, sir.
Anything else?
Yeah, we have one other general announcement. I'll let Leslie come up and take care of that one.
Okay, I was asked to provide this one related to activities that are happening across the state related to Executive Order from Governor Hobbs, number 4, creating the Governor's Water Policy Council. And more so, I was asked to explain that Ron Doba, who is our Executive Director of NAMWA, which is a group that the city has membership in, that he was selected he was appointed to be part of this effort that's happening down in Phoenix. However, due to virtual meetings, it's pretty impressive. I think I was counting on May 17th, there were well over probably 130, 140 people online, plus people in the room. So what this does, well, let me back up. So Ron Doba is appointed to the Governor's Water Policy Council. If you're not familiar with him, he's been NAMWA's executive director since 2007. He's also served another lifetime with the city of Flagstaff as their public works director and then an interim city manager. And why that's so important is he gets water from every angle, whether it be the infrastructure or the regulatory, and just long history seeing the state move through different challenges related to water. So the opening meeting, as I mentioned, was held on May 17th. I joined that virtually. The focus areas that the governor requested were related to the Assured Water Supply Program and rural groundwater. The difference here is that, as you'll see on the slide on the left-hand side, it was created as the Governor's Water Policy Council. It supersedes and rescinds Executive Order number blah, blah. So that was Governor Ducey's water group. And again, I think there was a lot of success with that. It incorporated a lot of the legislators in that group as much as they could, understanding that you can talk about water all you want, but then you have to get it into statute and what the changes are going to be. And that's a big challenge. Former Governor Ducey's group was trying to cover so many different areas and had so many subcommittees, which, as I said, I think did good work. This governor, I think, is looking to pinpoint 2 critical items. As I said, assured water supply, and what I didn't mention was rural groundwater. As Brian had mentioned, there is active legislation trying to figure out what to do with these watershed stewardship areas where, communities in the Wilcox, up in Northwest and the Kingman area, and you can just keep kind of picking them off on the east side of the Phoenix metropolitan area are all seeing struggles related to water. So the bottom line is the objectives of the group is to strengthen the integrity of the Assured Water Supply Program, protects consumers and aquifers. So meaning if you're buying a house and you are told it's a wildcat subdivision and only the first buyer is told, they would like to not have that as much. And then protect aquifers. We know these are not necessarily or not, period, renewable resources. They're finite when you're pumping from an aquifer, and communities occupy instead of migrate, as I mentioned earlier. And last is to ensure future growth is not reliant on mined groundwater. And that's almost no different than our story up here. We were mining groundwater. We knew that in 1998. We went towards our alternative water supplies and made a very good faith effort to move in that direction. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, staff ears are open. We're watching the activity that's happening in various outlets related to this. And we know there's another upcoming, there's 2 meetings coming up for this group end of June And then we also have some pretty heightened activity related to the Phoenix Active Management Area groundwater flow model, and that's going to be presented here shortly. And all ears are up related to that activity too.
Steve, any questions, comments? All right. Public comment? Peter? Pat? No? All right. I guess that's it. Thank you so much. I think that that concludes the meeting. We're adjourned.